Hey guys, how's it going? I don't know if you know about this FEMA drill that's going on today in Moscow, Idaho. It's called Zombie UFO Crash Disaster Full Scale Exercise. And my first thought when I saw this is that it's probably it's probably some type of. It says there's two scenarios: mass casualty and rope rescue. But I'm thinking it's probably a drill in preparation for possible plane crashes. And I think they probably named it UFO crash just so as not to alarm the public, maybe. And the reason I think that is because with all of the recent North Korea threats, I think that the government's probably realized that an electromagnetic pulse is a very real threat. And if that happened, there would be plane crashes. There would be a lot of plane crashes. So I have this, I'll link this video below. This is a YouTube video that is a documentary. I'm sorry, it's from the Future Weapons series, and it's just two parts. But it basically explains what would happen if there was an EMP. And there are some other YouTube videos that are better than these that actually go into extreme detail on the shutdown of the shipping systems and all of that. But basically, what they say is that if there was a high altitude electromagnetic pulse, meaning this nuclear device that's on a plane or a satellite, if it's set off, the higher the altitude that it's set off at, the wider the area that is affected. So, my thought is if there was an EMP blast, say where the satellites are, and even above another satellite, we could not only have planes crash falling out of the sky, but we could also have satellites falling out of the sky. So they had said that what would happen is that all of your electronics would stop working, your car would just stop working. I think there's a television series as well on this. Um, yeah, here it is right here. It's called Revolution. It's a television series. And then this is kind of weird. There was a movie. I don't know if you guys remember this movie, The Postman. It's a really good movie. And it in the movie takes place in 2013, and I don't think they ever explain what really happened, but it's apparent that they lost all their technology, so it might as well have been an EMP. So I thought it was kind of weird that it happens in 2013. It's a really good movie if you haven't seen it yet. But so if so basically what would happen is like within the first 2 weeks of an electromagnetic pulse, society would just go into chaos because the grocery stores would run out of food within 3 days because all the shipping would shut down. So there wouldn't be any more trucks bringing things in. There wouldn't be any more, you know, indoor plumbing. You'd run out of food. You'd run out of water, and things would just change. And it would probably people would probably start looting. The police would be really busy. They'd probably bring in the army. Um, People would might even go to FEMA camps willingly because they're out of food. Some people would probably be dragged off to FEMA camps unwillingly because maybe they were suspected of rioting, or it would probably just be absolute chaos. And so as I'm thinking about this, I'm realizing that this might actually be the event that the Hebrews describe, the Bible describes as being the Great Tribulation. Because if you remember, I made a video a couple weeks ago and it's linked below. You can go watch it if you want. It's called 2013, Why This Could Really Be the Year. And in that video, I explain how scripture shows us that this asteroid strike that's described in Revelation happens at the end of a 3.5 year period. It happens at the end of this Great Tribulation. But once I realized that that happens at the end, and there's no question that it happens at the end, I explained it all in that other video. It got me wondering, well, then what happens at the beginning? I mean, what is the tribulation then? I mean, if it's got to be big enough that people are willing to get chipped. I mean, I think we all pretty much agree that the microchip is the mark of the beast that's described in Revelation. I mean, it says that they had a mark in their right hand or their forehead, and no one could buy or sell without that mark. Some people say, no, it has a more esoteric meaning, and maybe they're right, I don't know. But I think we all kind of agree that it really does seem like it's the microchip, because they've already put it into some of their legislation, this RFID chip, that they're kind of trying to move us in that direction, like, oh, just get this chip and then you can get, everything that you need will be on that chip. Well, I think they'd have trouble getting everyone to agree to that unless there was some kind of big event and people were starving. You know what I mean? Because if you were starving to death and your kids were starving to death, you'd probably do whatever it took to get some food for your family. And it's kind of hitting me right now, like, wow, this might actually really be what is going to happen at the start of the tribulation. That it'll actually be an electromagnetic pulse that wipes out all electricity for 3.5 years. And because in this day and age, we are so dependent on technology. And 100 years ago, they knew how to survive without electricity, but we don't. And we've lost all of that. We've lost all of that information that was passed down from generation to generation on how to preserve your food, etc., etc. They knew all of that back then. We don't know that anymore. So it would be really hard for us nowadays to go through an event like that. And it just really makes sense. And here's the other thing that kind of blew my mind. There's a couple of other things. So we know that Revelation is describing this great tribulation. Matthew 24:15-22 talks about it. Daniel 12 talks about it. And Revelation 12 talks about it. And basically what it says is there's going to be this sign in the heavens first. Then the escape, the great escape, the multitude. I've explained this in some of my other videos. The multitude of all tribes and nations that escapes to the heavenly place. Luke 17:37, the body is soma. It means heavenly stars. So there's this great escape. I've talked about it in some of my other videos. They're linked below in the description box if you haven't watched those already. But Revelation 12 says first that sign in the heavens happens. That's 1-5. We know that happened October 16th, 2012. And it happens again in 2454 AD. And it happened before in 1570, but as you can tell, it's a really rare sign. And I also have a video on that linked below if you haven't watched that already. So that's the first thing Revelation describes. So Revelation 12, 1-5 is that sign in the heavens. It's a celestial configuration. That other video I have explains it. But the next thing that happens after that is the multitude escaping into the heavens. And then after that, Michael and his angels fight against the dragon, and the dragon is cast out. Okay, so here's the thing that kind of blows my mind. NASA has a satellite network called Satan. It's the Satellite Automatic Tracking Antenna Network. Okay, well, that's what Revelation says. It says First, you'll see the sign in the heavens, which is the celestial configuration. Next will be the escape, and then the dragon will be cast out. Verse 9, the dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So if Satan is this satellite network, that might actually be what Revelation 12 is referring to when it says that Satan was cast out to the earth. I'm not saying that's the only meaning, but I think that very possibly could be one of the meanings for that. I'm going to explain what another meaning of it might be too. But I think that very possibly might be what it actually is. And but there's four different things that are being described here. There's the dragon, the serpent, the devil, and Satan. So we know that at least one thing, meaning Satan, is a satellite network. So if there was an EMP that occurs in the exosphere above that satellite network, then it could knock out, I mean, who knows? I don't know much about this, but it could knock out the satellites below it, the airplanes below it, and everything else. So not just the electricity in your house and in your town, but also, there would be plane crashes, and maybe even satellites crashing. So the Hopis had said that the last sign before the purification would be the dwelling place in the heavens crashing to the earth. So I don't know, this is really weird, and it's starting to make sense. And okay, so here's the other thing. And this is probably going to be kind of out there for some people. But one thing you'll notice from reading Revelation 12 is that, well, you know what? Before I talk about this, no, I'll just go ahead and go into this right now. So, Revelation 12, it seems like it's not in chronological order because it says, first you see the sign, that's 1 through 5, then the bride escapes, then the dragon is cast out, and then it says, and they rejoiced in heaven, but woe unto them on the earth. But then it repeats and again says in verse 13, and when the dragon saw that he was cast out, he persecuted the woman. So wait a second, I thought the woman escaped. Up here in verse 6, it says the woman escapes, then the dragon is cast out. So how does the dragon get cast out, then persecute the woman, then she escapes? Because see, verse 14 where the woman escapes is the same as verse 6. Okay, so here's an idea that blew my mind. Okay, some of you guys will remember this video that I put up a couple of months ago, back in January. And it's linked below in the description box. It's called Genesis 3, the shaft that changed their appearance, made them beautiful. And basically, please go watch this video if you haven't seen it already. It's mind-blowing. Because I went in and I looked at what the actual words in Genesis 3 mean. And there is an alternate translation, a legitimate alternate translation that basically says that the shaft, that there was this shaft that changed their appearance, that caused them to be perceived as beautiful. Okay. I don't want to go through all of this because I explain it in that other video and I really want you to go watch that other video. But basically what it says at the end of Genesis 3, in Genesis 3 verse 7, it says something very interesting. After it talks about how they use this shaft that changed their appearance and made them beautiful, the provision, It says, I'll start in verse 7. It says, "And the appearance of them blossomed, and they lived a distinguished manner of life, and became known that they were crafty and took crafty counsel. And they sewed together, and the fig tree sprung forth, and they bound themselves." Okay, what is being described here is an obvious technology of some kind. It sounds like a holographic, light bending technology that is being used, that the Isha brought down to them from heaven. And the Isha is the hybrid. I explained that all in the other video. And the Nakash is the snake using the technology. It's the image. It's the snake using the technology. Okay. So, but the code at the end of this in verse 7 is telling us when this is all happening. It says, "And the fig tree sprung forth." So if you go watch my other video, 2013, why this could really be the year, in that video, I show the scriptures that show that the fig tree is Israel. So the fig tree springing forth is code for 1947. And 1947 was when Israel was declared a nation. So Genesis 3 is telling us that they started using this technology in 1947. That the technology came from the Nakash and was given to them by the Isha, that was brought down from heaven by the Isha, and that they started using it in 1947. That's what Genesis 3 is telling us. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. But here's the thing. In 1947, there was a UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. I'm sure you guys all know about this. And there were so many witnesses, there were so many government people that came out at that time and years after that that said, yes, it was real. And they started trying to reverse engineer that saucer craft or whatever that they found. They started taking technology from it, reverse engineering it, and then, according to a lot of government people, this is the technology that we use today. That a lot of the technology we have today since 1947 stems from that Roswell crash. And that's why it's so bizarre, because Genesis 3, and there's a link below to this video if you want to see what these words actually mean. It really does say that. It says they're using this technology, it changes their appearance, makes them beautiful, and they started using it in 1947. It literally tells us that in Genesis 3. So, that's why I'm kind of blown away, thinking, okay, wait a minute. So Jesus and Gabriel kept talking about, Jesus said, when the fig tree buds, one generation shall not pass before all these things be fulfilled. Remember, he said that, Matthew 24. And Gabriel also said that that all of these things that he was telling Daniel about in here, that it would all be completed by the 70th Shavuot, which basically 70 years is also a generation. So they were saying the same thing. Israel becoming a nation wasn't just, that was just a clue. But the real major event might have been the crash that occurred. You know what I mean? Because they could have corrupted our world with their technology when we weren't ready for it. I mean, obviously, I don't know, maybe they got the technology before that. Maybe it was, I guess, I mean, because we had the nuclear incident in 1945, right? So I don't know. But this is important somehow. And here's the other thing. In Revelation 12, you know, it seems to be non-chronological, but okay, I watched this Star Trek episode one time, and I think it was Star Trek Voyager or Star Trek Next Generation, and they had gone down to the planet, but in and they were in the future at some time, like far, far future, you know, in their own time, and they were having a war. But in the middle of the war, they went down, they tried to go down to the earth. They tried to escape down to the earth, but instead of going down to the earth in their own time period, they ended up being caught in some type of temporal distortion that sent them back in time, so that instead of landing on the earth in their own time period, they landed on the earth back in time. If that's what happened here, where it says that, okay, the woman escapes, is taken to the safe place, then the dragon is cast out to the earth. Okay, but if the dragon was cast out to the earth and went back in time on the earth, then that would explain how the dragon then persecuted the woman before she was taken up. You see what I mean? So that this actually might be in chronological order, but you have to understand that there's time distortion involved. And I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to say, okay, that's way too far out there, but if you go to scientists and ask them what they say about time travel, I mean, top scientists, they're going to tell you it's possible. This is what they'll say. They'll say, yes, it's possible, but we can't do it yet. They've actually proven with atomic clocks that there is time distortion, that time moves slower, the faster. It's the theory of relativity, and I'm probably not going to explain it very well because honestly, I don't fully understand it, and I don't know anyone who does. But it they did an experiment to prove that the theory of relativity was true. And the theory of relativity basically says that the faster you're moving, the slower time flows. So they did a test where they had one atomic clock on the earth and another atomic clock, and they were both set to the same time. And the other clock was on this plane, and the plane was circling around the earth. And what they found was that the atomic clock on the plane ran slow, opposed to the atomic clock on the earth. And so they have done experiments that seem to prove, according to them, that does prove that the theory of relativity is true, meaning that time distortion or time dilation is true. So, I don't pretend to understand it, but it's really not that crazy. It's not as crazy as it sounds. And so some civilization far in the future might actually really have this capability to time travel. And so there might be some type of temporal distortion that happened when the dragon was cast out, so that the dragon, instead of being cast out in 2013, which is what this is saying, because we know that it's either 2013 or 2454, because this sign right here in verse 1 through 5 was fulfilled on October 16th, 2012. So I have a video on that linked below if you don't know what I'm talking about. That explains everything. But that's just an idea. Obviously, I don't know that. Anyway, if you don't know much about the Roswell incident, this is a really good mini series by Steven Spielberg. It's a long one. It's called Taken, and I have a playlist on it. I'll link it below so you can check that out if you don't know anything about the Roswell incident thing. But I don't know. I mean that's pretty bizarre to me because on the one hand, Revelation 12 could be telling us that okay, when you see this sign, which we saw in October 2012, when you see that the the bride will escape or the multitude will escape to heaven, there will be a war in heaven. um, the satellite network will be cast out. I mean, that's the one way of looking at it. The satellite network will fall to the earth and the Great Tribulation will start. So, like the EMP happens, the satellite falls, and the Great Tribulation starts. But at the same time, it could be saying that um, that this Roswell crash was the dragon being cast to the earth, and that's where they got their technology. That's where all the humans got their technology for like the image technology, the holographic technology that changes their appearance, etc. And who knows what else, the light bending technology. Um, and so that could have corrupted our timeline, so to speak. But at the same time, as the dragon was on the earth from 1947 until now, basically, the dragon would be persecuting that multitude. And the dragon would know exactly who the multitude was. The dragon would know who escaped to heaven because they escaped before the dragon was cast out. You see what I mean? So they escaped, let's say either in 2013 or 2454. We don't know which one. It's either one of those years because go watch that other video I made, 2013, why this could really be the year. It has to be 2013 or 2454 because of this Revelation 12 sign. It has to happen in that year. So we basically have until the Great Tribulation should start at least by the end of July 2013. And if it doesn't, then we might, then it might end up having to be 2454 because this timeline is it's pretty clear. But anyway, that's just what it seems like to me right now. I can't see how it could be wrong because that's really I just can't see how it could be wrong. So if you can see how it's wrong, then let me know. But please actually watch those videos before you comment. You know what I mean? Because I there's some things that I've already explained so many times that I don't want to take up my comment section answering the same question over and over again that I've already answered in my videos. You know what I mean? So at least watch the video before you comment. But anyway, so, or at least look at the links in my description box for whatever comment you have. Like if you have a comment on something and you think I missed it, please look at the links in my description box. Because if you comment on something that I've already answered 100 times in 100 different videos, I'm not going to answer you. I'm just letting you know. So I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I just get tired of repeating myself all the time. So at least just watch those links. But yeah, I mean, if you can see how something in here doesn't fit, then yeah, I mean, let me know. But from what I can tell, this is how the timeline works out. The asteroid strike hits at the end. And I explain all of the reasons why. So, like I was saying, if the asteroid strike is at the end, then what's at the beginning? Well, I think it might be an electromagnetic pulse. That's when the satellite falls, and that seems to go right along with what Revelation 12 is saying, that the escape happens, then the satellite falls, and the EMP happens. So here's another thing that I was thinking about. If the satellite, if the EMP, if an electromagnetic pulse happened at the start of the tribulation at the same time as the rapture or the escape, whatever you want to call it, then for one thing, there wouldn't be any mass communication. So there'd be no more television, there would be no more cell phones. So if you were, let's say you saw somebody disappear right in front of you, um, who would you tell? I mean, you couldn't call anyone. You wouldn't be able to, I mean, you could tell your neighbor. But then when you went to the police, I mean, if you were in the middle of an EMP event and you told the police, um, this person disappeared right in front of me, first of all, they probably wouldn't believe you. And second of all, they'd probably be so busy that they just wouldn't have time to, they probably wouldn't even have time to listen to what you were saying. You know what I mean? They'd probably be really big, because if an EMP event happened, like I said, within 2 weeks, there would be riots and probably wars and people being dragged off to FEMA camps. And some people would be disappearing anyway, you know, because maybe they would be picked up by the army or maybe even killed. Probably people would be killed. There would be riots. There would be people going to FEMA camps. There'd be all this stuff happening. The police would be busy. They wouldn't have time to listen to you. And so, what might end up happening is that, um, if you think about it, a lot of people, the most of the people that don't believe in the rapture, I mean, they're sure not going to believe you, you know? So, and how many people would actually see someone disappear right in front of them? Probably not that many, because since there would already be chaos going on. That's one reason they wouldn't notice it. The other reason, because okay, because I can tell you from my own personal experience, I had an experience one time. I'll just share this with you. I had this experience and I still think it was pretty weird, where this guy was standing right in front of me and then he disappeared and reappeared like further away. And even to this day, I look back and I think, no, I know that was weird. That was really weird. That wasn't normal. But so, I mean, I can tell you that even when you experience something like that, it's not necessarily something that you go tell everyone about. Okay. So, um, the reality of a real event, a real rapture event happening at the same time as an EMP that stops communication, stops worldwide communication. There's chaos going on. Everybody's busy. Everybody's running around. People are starving and freaking out because they don't know how they're going to get their next meal. There's riots going on. They're trying to protect their family. You would be in that same position. So even if you did see somebody disappear right in front of you, you probably wouldn't accept it, is what I'm trying to say. Because I look back at that experience I had years ago and I think, even at that time, I was overwhelmed with things that were going on in my life and I didn't even tell anyone about it because I was just too busy with my own life. So I'm saying that I think, there's a scripture and I can't remember what the scripture is. If I find it, I'll link it below. But the scripture says something like they will escape unnoticed or something like that, which seems to indicate that maybe this escape isn't going to be observed by anybody. Maybe because they're just too busy. And a lot of people go missing. A lot of people get carted off to FEMA camps. A lot of people get killed in the process. You know what I mean? So who knows? That is an idea, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And I know some of it probably seems a little out there, but it it really could. It makes sense to me anyway. I don't know. It makes sense to me that, yeah, this EMP thing at least is very real. It is a very real threat, and it really could happen. And satellites could fall, and planes could crash, and I mean, some of this stuff is just, it's real. I mean, NASA does have a satellite network named called Satan. I mean, Revelation 12 could literally be talking about that, saying that it falls to the earth at that time. Roswell happened in 1947. I mean, So I don't know. I hope you guys are doing well. I'll leave these links below. Um, that there's a television show called Revolution. It's about an EMP attack. Um, and there's this other documentary as well that came out on what would happen if there was an EMP. So I'll leave the links below, and I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.